driving in an Arctic truck. So they contacted him when he went over and he set up the kind of communications again. And so like it made people's lives a lot more comfortable in the aftermath of that flood, you know, it might have saved life. And there was some politician, you know, the kind of Lord Mayor of the place gave him the freedom of the city. So he's a kind of good fella. And just a comment I was going to make, like I loved your talk, and the comment about the European Union being Catholic, that's not like that's too kind of simplistic. It's kind of because a lot of the people, Declan Ganley for one, he is a serious kind of devout Catholic, and that core group is Catholic. And one free newspaper, apart from the Sovereign Independent, the same circulation Sovereign Independent, that's been attacking the EU as a thing for years, is a live paper, and that's Catholic as well. So, and there's even one congregation whole kind of fleet of nuns and priests, and they give similar presentations as yourself. So just that was one thing I wanted to clarify.
I wasn't specifically passing a comment or observation there about the Irish Catholic Church. I mean, this is the Vatican. Yeah, this is the Vatican. The Vatican has a phenomenal wheel, and I'm sure you appreciate. Yeah, I was just going to say, I'm sure you appreciate what I say when I said the Jesuits have a phenomenal hold over the EU. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Just going what the guy was saying there. I came across something yesterday about an EU Mediterranean project. Have you heard anything about that? Apparently, it's the Mediterranean countries that border Europe and Northern Africa, and they're going to do another EU basic, and they're going to open the borders and let all the Islamics into Europe.
Oh, yes, yeah. No, I mean, the intention, I mean, it goes even beyond that, and I haven't really got into this at all tonight, but actually, they're going to completely break down all nationalities. You know, what they're going to try and do is literally over the next couple of generations destroy, you know, the situation where people perceive themselves to be of a nationality. And I mean, even the area where I live, you know, ultimately, and again, there's a target here, if Lisbon is ratified, there's a target here of 2012, 2013, that where I live in South Devon, which is in the southwest of England, that becomes part of the European Transmanche region. Trans Channel. So basically what they're looking at is northern France, like Normandy and Brittany, and then Dorset and Devon, Somerset, a bit of Wiltshire, become this administrative area known as Transmanche. You know, and that's the sort of next step to breaking power away from you know, national governments. So Westminster has less and less influence. So it's Brussels, and then effectively bypassing the national assemblies like Westminster and coming into these regional assemblies which cross borders. And there is, I mean, you can actually Google the map, the intended map of the European regions, and see that it is a deliberate attempt to completely break down national identity.
This idea of the likes, particularly in Murdoch's groups with the company information.
Thank you for coming. Thanks very much.
Yeah, brilliant.
Putting the information out in public to see how they react within a cold-tested third circuit, but they don't call that something to do with karmic dissolution, where the people actually ask without consent by acquiescence.
Exactly.
Karmic retribution for what it is they're doing.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's why they absolutely work on the basis of creating apathy or willful ignorance. And I mean, even to the extent of I mean, some work done by John Coleman, who in the early 90s put together a very convincing thesis suggesting that the whole of the creation of the spiritual agenda from the 1960s onwards was a deliberate construct, so that basically people were either locked into consumerist materialism and therefore were willing economic slaves, or they elected to pursue this spiritual path, where they remove themselves from the consumerist materialism on the basis of pursuing their dream of self-actualization or whatever. But Coleman was making the observation that at the end of the day, it's two sides of the same coin. Because all you've got to do is just make sure that nobody takes an interest in what you're doing. So the consumerist materialists you keep under control through economic slavery. Those pursuing the spiritual path, you just encourage them to go away and do whatever they're doing with their Christians, etc. And then you can get on with it. And in another sort of presentation, what I suggest is actually what we need to do is bring the two together. Because that's how we can actually break through this. And those people that have realised that there may be something more to life than just the consumerist materialism, having been through that process, the challenge for them is to come in and actually make a difference and make the world a better place based upon the experiences that they believe they have had. And so there's no question that the guys who are driving this agenda, they are not called the illuminated ones for no reason. They very well know what they are doing, and they are very good at what they do. Now, just to turn that completely on its head, from a spiritual standpoint, if you wish, consider the possibility that what we are being given is a tremendous opportunity here. Because we are actually being forced to make some decisions and to reflect on those decisions. Now, unfortunately, a lot of people, of course, are not doing that. They're just going along with the PR. But for those people who do recognise that there is an opportunity here to participate, to get involved, to stand up and be counted. And by the way, that isn't going to stop, because if Lisbon is signed, as I said earlier, there is going to be, I think, points in time where people who are members of the civil service, members of the teaching profession, members of the emergency services, members of healthcare, they're going to have to stand up and challenge this agenda. I think it's coming sooner rather than later, potentially, with the swine flu vaccination. We're already seeing situations where in North America, in Massachusetts and in Oklahoma, there is legislation before the respective senates where it will effectively become illegal for any citizen to resist the instruction of a healthcare professional at a time of a designated emergency. In other words, if you resist the mandatory swine flu vaccine, you potentially subject yourself to a fine of $1,000 a day and imprisonment.
That's actually gone through the World Health Organization as well. It's actually been passed already.
So, healthcare professionals are perhaps the first line here that are going to have to actually decide, where their line in the sand really is.
Citizen is a key word, though, because you're not automatically a citizen of anything. You're just a human, right? This is actually lawful as well. You can deny consent. Citizen is status, and that's in the legal world. It's all fictional, it's all fake, it's all letters after your name, and it doesn't actually change what you are. And you can't just tell me I'm a citizen. You can't put a status on me without my consent, full consent. So if you deny consent to be made a citizen, you might effectively be taking away one of the biggest weapons the governments have over you, because they're not governing humans. They're governing humans who think they're citizens, who think they're persons, who think they're legal fiction. And that's what this free man thing that me and my friends here are...
No, absolutely. Yeah, but what you have to take into account as well is that the free man concept, and John Harris would be the first to acknowledge this, requires that you put your life on the line. It requires that you stick your head above the parapet and that you are prepared to deal with the consequences. So first of all, you've got to have the sort of psychological Kevlar casing, to be able to deal with all the bullshit that comes with it. And if you're single and you have no asset base, you have nothing to lose, then great. We absolutely need people to go out there and test this arena. But we've also got to come up with some practical responses, because not everybody really is ready to be a martyr to the system. But they do need some guidance as to sort of perhaps how they